Kevin Syracuse from Sports Hour. We're live here at the Bills game.
You get that? You get that?
Welcome into Sports Hour here in Hendricks Hall for our first episode of the year. I'm your host, Kevin Syracuse, alongside our NFL analyst, Aaron Sember. And Aaron, it feels great to be back after 7 months.
7 months. It's been a journey, but I didn't even know we were going to be here. But we're finally back, you know?
Finally. It feels good. Feels good. So we'll start off with Fredonia sports like normal. I mean, obviously there aren't a lot of sports to report on, but we did get an update today. So as you know, the SUNYAC canceled all fall sports this year due to the coronavirus, but the Blue Devils Fitness Center, Dodds Gymnasium, and the Steel Hall tennis courts open today. Now, students must pre-register online to go to one of these facilities. No walk-ins are permitted. And then before the show, I heard back from Jerry Fisk, the athletic director, and he said that some teams have started practicing today, and winter sports they're still scheduled to start in mid-October, and they are planning on staggered starts to minimize density. So Aaron, you are on the track team, so have you heard anything about that yet? As for the track and field team?
I've heard very little, but all I know is that it's going to be a very unique season, and that's for sure. Just this whole year as a whole, it's going to be very weird for everybody, athletes, just students in general. I know it's already been crazy, so I don't know how it's going to, play out, but.
Yeah, and obviously we don't have a football team here, but I heard at the high school level they're talking about having the football season in March.
That's so weird.
So high school football season is going to, I don't want to say it's going to, but tentatively they're planning on it starting in March and just kind of condensing everything into the spring season. So that's crazy. I mean, we could have 2 feet of snow and it could be week 1. So it's crazy. But the real football league has started. The NFL is back and in full swing. We are 2 full weeks, well, not full yet. We have one more game tonight.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks in, no preseason, no training camps.
No OTAs, no anything.
Nothing. So it was a real busy offseason. You want to get our viewers caught up on some of the big trades and free agent signings?
Yeah, of course. So obviously the big one was Tom Brady took his talents to Tampa Bay, and he's now the starting quarterback for the Bucs. And then in one of the craziest trades, that was probably the most crazy, but up there was also DeAndre Hopkins. He got traded to the Cardinals, which, I don't know why Houston did that. I really don't know why, but now, Hopkins already was top 3 best in the league at his position, and now with the mentorship from Fitzgerald, he could go all the way. He could be the best of all time at this point.
And to put into perspective what that trade was like, Hopkins in week 1 had 14 catches for 151 yards. The remaining Texans wide receivers had a total of 13 receptions.
So they really missed him over
So
there.
I do not understand that trade. I also don't understand the Stephon Diggs trade from the Minnesota side. I mean, I love it. I mean, Bills fan,
the Bills got
great for
Stephon
us.
Diggs, so.
But, I mean, if you're Minnesota, I don't know. Especially with Kirk Cousins now, negative 1.48 fantasy points yesterday. I don't know what's going on with Minnesota, but
the Colts signed old man Phillip Rivers at the spiteful age of 38, I think he is now. But he'll probably play for 2 years before they get a new quarterback. But that's always good to have a veteran in the backfield. I mean, Rivers' last few years in Indianapolis, the Chargers. Yeah,
San
he played
Diego,
for the
LA,
See, now my brain's jogging right now, but they weren't so good. He was throwing too many picks, but I feel like this is a better environment for him overall. The Saints signed Malcolm Jenkins, and I think, obviously he was already part of the team, like back in the middle of the 2010s, I think around that time. So that's just another veteran presence in the secondary. Darius Slay also got traded to the Eagles. And Calais Campbell, which, before the show, Kevin and I were saying, he has one of the deepest voices I've ever heard. He's like 6'8". He's this huge guy. And he signed with the Ravens. He's their new defensive tackle, and there was tons more. Just a really wacky offseason.
Yeah, a lot of people, that was pretty much, that was the only thing in the sports world that was going on. The NFL still went on with free agency and the draft, and it gave us something to do, something to watch, something to talk about. So, props to the NFL for handling this situation the best they can. And I mean, they did 2 weeks of testing. I believe there's just one positive test in 2 weeks out of thousands of tests that were administered.
Yeah,
so
they've really hammered down on all that stuff, obviously, because it's scary, let's be honest.
But on the downfall of that, like we said, there wasn't a preseason, and I think the players are starting to feel the effects of that, as there were so many injuries yesterday. And the reports came out today, some star players are going to be out for the year. So who are some of those players?
Yeah, so Saquon Barkley, probably the leader of that Giants team, obviously. He's out for the year with a torn ACL. Christian McCaffrey's not out for the year, so fantasy owners, don't worry about that. But he did have an ankle injury. He's out. He exited for the end of the game, and he's out multiple weeks. Mike Thomas, obviously one of the best receivers in the league. He had an ankle injury. He didn't play week 2, so he got hurt week 1. Chris Godwin, yes, I said Goodwin in the pregame, or the pre-show, whatever. And he had a concussion, so he didn't play. Devontae Adams, he had a hamstring injury. Byron Jones had a groin injury. Nick Bosa also had a torn ACL, so he's out for the season. Drew Lock, a young up-and-comer from Denver, he had a shoulder injury, so he exited the game. Jimmy G had an ankle sprain, Jimmy Garoppolo. George Kittle had a knee injury. Marlon Mack, torn Achilles, so he's out for the year too. Le'Veon Bell, who is like the whole Jets offense at this point, he had a hamstring injury. And Devontae Parker finally had a hamstring injury. So all those names, it's crazy. I think this is the most injuries I've ever seen in 1 week.
And star players too, nonetheless.
Yeah.
These aren't just ordinary NFL guys or backups. Like, these are big name players. When you have Saquon Barkley, one of the top fantasy players out there, and he's just done after not even 2 weeks. I mean, that's huge. Nick Bosa, he's out for the year, like you were saying. I mean, he was a key part to that 49ers defense. And, I mean, obviously, none of these injuries are good. I mean, McCaffrey, the Panthers, I feel like they're going to be...
He runs that team.
Yeah. I mean, he's
the
a team.
Offense.
I felt like they're going to be like 8-8 before, but now without McCaffrey, I mean...
It's just I think it's like 2 to 3 weeks, so it's nothing major.
Yeah. But I mean, that definitely has a huge effect. I mean, if they go down, if they lose the next few weeks, that puts them in a huge hole to start the season. But on the bright side, we have had a lot of good games. So starting off with Thursday Night Football this past week, we got
Battle
to see
of Ohio.
Yeah, Joe Burrow and Baker Mayfield, and Baker came out on top here.
Yep. Baker won overall, but obviously Burrow played great. He easily played like he was a #1 overall pick, which
61 pass attempts for a rookie. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield threw for 219 yards passing. He had 2 touchdowns and also 1 interception. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, they both had great games in the backfield. Obviously, they're probably the best 1-2 punch in the league because in most situations, Kareem Hunt would be a starter.
Well, there are a lot. The parity between running backs is, I mean, there's so much parity now. I mean, there are so many dynamic duos, so they're definitely up there, though.
Yeah. Odell had 4 receptions, 74 yards, and a touchdown. And then going for the Bengals, so Joe Burrow had 316-yard passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, so he played great. Joe Mixon had a quiet game, really nothing special on his end. And Tyler Boyd had 7 receptions, 79 yards, and 1 touchdown. So overall, it was a really good game. Obviously, for the most part, when you hear about the Browns and the Bengals on Thursday Night Football, it's like boring. But this year, since we haven't had sports, it was one of the most exciting games of the year so far. So,
and I think Burrow showed that he's, I mean, obviously it's early, but I really think he is going to be the real deal. I mean, the Bengals just look so much better already this year.
I think he takes too many hits. I think that O-line just needs to protect him better because obviously we see people get injured all the time. Obviously, after this week, and without Burrow on that team, I don't know who they even have in their. I don't even know who their backup is. So that just shows how much faith they have in Joe Burrow with this team.
Now on the flip side, this is the third year for Baker Mayfield, and that's a huge year for quarterbacks. You have the rookie year, you're just getting introduced to the league, the sophomore slump year, and then the third year is when you really take a turn. And this is critical for Baker because the Browns still haven't gotten in the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't want to say the pressure's on, but when you're a high draft pick like that, you got to perform. And a guy that is performing right now, Josh Allen. He has looked amazing so far. He is the NFL's leading passer through 2 weeks. 729 yards passing. As you can see here in the highlights yesterday versus the Dolphins, as he's connecting to his new buddy, Stephon Diggs, who had 153 yards receiving and a touchdown. And there he finds John Brown. And
they're a really good 1-2 punch. Brown and Stephon Diggs, because, Brown's a speedy guy, and then,
and don't forget Cole Beasley, too. As so Allen dropped a dime, a perfect dime right to Beasley right there. I mean, when you look at the Bills' wide receivers in 2018, Kelvin Benjamin, Deontay Thompson, I'm drawing a blank. Charles Clay was a tight end.
Yeah.
And
really
now
no one special.
You have Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley, and then Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, Dawson Knox. Who do you cover? I mean, that's why Reggie Gilliam, the rookie, scored a touchdown yesterday, because it's like, who do you cover?
Yeah.
And that's nice to see because the Bills' offense has been pretty bad over the last few years.
Yeah. When do you think the Dolphins are going to start Tua? Like 2 more weeks, you think?
No, I think Fitzpatrick's
the whole year.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say the whole year, but he played good yesterday.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did. He had 328 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Dolphins' running game though is obsolete. They weren't there at all. Mike Gesicki though had 8 receptions, 130 yards, and 1 touchdown. And the one thing I remember about him is when they play, the Chiefs played. I don't know. Remember that game when? Let's not talk about it.
So, we're running out of time here. Wish we had more time to talk. There's so much to talk about. I'm just going to run over these scores real quick here. So, the Bears beat the Giants 17-13. The Rams, who will be in Buffalo next week, beat the Eagles 37-19. The Cowboys pulled off a stunner as Atlanta blew another huge lead.
By 20.
40-39. Onside kick, Greg Zuerlein, crazy. Buccaneers, Tampa Bay. Tom Brady got his first win in Tampa Bay. They beat the Panthers 31-17. The 49ers beat the Jets 31-13. The Steelers beat the Drew Lockless Broncos 26-21. Tennessee improved to 2-0. They beat Gardner Minshew and the Jaguars 33-30. The Packers, Aaron Rodgers looking great as they drafted Jordan Love. People were wondering what's going on up there, but they look great again, 42-21 over Detroit.
He definitely took that personal, 100%.
Indy over Minnesota, 28-11. The Cardinals beat the football team.
Yes.
The Washington football team, 30-15. The Ravens, 33-16 over the Texans. The Chiefs, your Chiefs, beat the Chargers.
Yep.
Harrison Butker, that was amazing. 3 straight 50-plus yard field goals.
50-plus field goals. I couldn't believe it. It was getting me real anxious, that's for sure.
And finally, we had the Seahawks over the Patriots, 35-30. That was a great Sunday night game. Russell Wilson, again, proves why he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And
predictions. So
tonight,
Monday Night Football, I think the Saints are going to win 24-14 they're going to beat the Raiders. And then Thursday night, since we're coming back on Monday, I think the Dolphins are going to win a close one to the Jags, 27-21. But yeah, that's about it.
All right, well, there you have it. And Josh will be on next to talk about hockey. And like I always say, go Bills.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul.
You've messed up your son's haircut. Do you try to fix it? Work with what you've got? Or show solidarity?
Thank you, babe.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Remember that to love America is to love all Americans, because love has no labels.
Había un niño que era muy sensible a luces y sonidos. Construía escondites donde no podían entrar. No le gustaba mirar a la gente a los ojos. Lo hacía sentir incómodo. Un día se descubrió que tenía autismo. Con ayuda, poco a poco, aprendió a vivir mejor con ello.
Mientras más pronto se diagnostique, mejor. Conoce las señales en autismspeaks.org.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals 25. Good job!
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can stop to make sure someone is okay.
We can warn someone when their drink isn't safe.
And disrupt the situation.
We can.
Get someone a cab.
Or walk them home safely.
We can make campuses safer for our friends.
Our roommates.
Our classmates. Our fellow human beings.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can. Intervene.
It's on us.
All of us.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
And welcome back. Now is time for our hockey segment here with Josh Schmidt. And Josh, you know, Aaron and I were talking about how it's been 7 months. 7 months ago, the last thing that we did was we went to the last sporting event that was hosted before the coronavirus outbreak.
And I would like to take credit for the idea of going to that event.
Yeah, no, it was your idea. You know, you got the Sports Hour crew rounded up.
Yep.
And
the Sabres won in a shootout. So
yeah.
It was pretty good.
That was, I mean, wish we could go again, but at least they won.
Maybe someday. Well, hopefully someday.
Yeah, so the Sabres won't be playing again until probably mid-December, late December. They're still trying to figure out when next season is going to start, as obviously the Stanley Cup is going on right now.
Yep.
But the Sabres have had some nice moves here so far.
Yeah, Kevin Adams made his first trade as an NHL GM.
Well, first of all, Botterill got fired.
Well, yes, Jason Botterill thankfully got fired, and Kevin Adams brought in, very unsure. He's his first time as an NHL GM, but his first trade looks like it's pretty good. Eric Stahl came to Buffalo in exchange for Marcus Johansson. Marcus Johansson's off to Minnesota. Stahl has 1 year remaining at $3.25 million. He's 35 years old. He had 47 points in 66 games last year. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, this guy, he's played, I don't know how long in the NHL. He has over 1,200 games, 436 goals for 1,021 points in his career. And he won the Stanley Cup in 2006 with Carolina, with Kevin Adams, actually. Kevin Adams was on that team, and that was the year the Sabres could have won it, but, you know, injuries and all that good stuff. But it's nice that he has Buffalo connections with Kevin Adams and Jeff Skinner. Jeff Skinner was in Carolina at the beginning of his career, and Stahl was still there at that point, so they have that little bit of a connection. Skinner was really excited about the trade. Stahl said he was blindsided by it, but, I mean, you know, he knows Adams, he knows Skinner. I think once he gets here and he gets to work with Jack Eichel, Victor Olofsson, Sam Reinhart, Jeff Skinner, I think he'll kind of roll into it and be happy about it. And worst comes to worst, he's only got a year left on his contract. We're shedding $1.5 million off the cap, so I think it's a win-win. The only downside could be if Marcus Johansson somehow blows up in Minnesota, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, no. So, in addition to getting more production at a cheaper cost, the Sabres also filled the hole at second line center.
Finally, yes. Somebody actually did something. That was the other part that was so good about this trade, is we actually have a second line center now. Dylan Cousins doesn't have to be rushed. He could play third line center. He could go back to the WHL. We have options now. So,
and like you're saying, he gets to reunite with Skinner. So Skinner finally has a line mate, because who was playing center from last year? Was it Lazar?
It was Johansson. And
Johansson
can't play center. He hasn't played center since the beginning of his career. And the Minnesota GM, Bill Guerin, actually said he wants Johansson to play center in Minnesota, when it clearly didn't work for him in Buffalo. So,
another
sorry,
Minnesota
Mojo,
team that's a little messed up here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Minnesota Wild Tire Fires, as me and my friends like to call them.
Yeah. So now, Stahl comes in. He takes the pressure off of Eichel. He gets to reunite and play alongside Skinner. And like you said, he allows Cousins to develop more, and great leadership and mentorship.
Yep. I mean, this guy's won a Stanley Cup, so that's another feather in your cap there. I mean, it's another veteran presence in the locker room. Eric Stahl is a fantastic player. I don't think he's going to end his career here in Buffalo, but if he plays here for a year and likes it, maybe he'll sign a year or two deal and then go retire in Carolina or Minnesota. But we'll just have to see how it goes. I mean, I think he's going to be a good addition, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Now, as for the teams that are playing, like I said, we are in the middle of the Stanley Cup playoff. Well, it's not the playoffs, the Stanley Cup Finals right now, as it is Dallas and Tampa Bay. So, what are your thoughts about how this whole postseason is shucking up here?
I really think that the NHL did a nice job presenting this. I mean, like we've been saying, there's been no sports for so long, but the NHL jumped right on the bubble idea, and it worked out great for them. I think they only had one positive case the entire time, and that was with people leaving the bubble for like family emergencies, their wives having babies and stuff like that, and then they come back and there's still no positive cases. So I think the NHL did a bang-up job here, and the playoffs have been going great. It's a lot of action, a lot of upsets. So, but the Western Conference Finals, the Western and Eastern Conference Finals, the rounds that just finished, it was Vegas and Dallas in the West, and the Islanders and Tampa Bay in the East. Dallas won their series 3-1. I don't really know what happened to Vegas. The wheels kind of fell off for them there, but it's a shame to see because they've been so good for so long. So long.
Short.
They've been so good in such a quick amount of time. And then the Islanders and the Islanders and the Lightning, quite a wild ride in that series. The first game was 8-2 Tampa, so that was quite the start. And then it would just go to like a 2-1 game in overtime, and we almost saw one of those 5 overtime games like we saw earlier in the playoffs between Tampa and New York. They went to 2 overtimes in Game 5, but ultimately Tampa wins out 4-2 in the series. So now your Stanley Cup Final is Dallas versus Tampa Bay. The other night in Game 1, Dallas won 4-1. And going on right now is Game 2, and last we checked before we started, it was 0-0 with about like 10 minutes to go in the first. So I think Tampa wins it tonight. I can't really tell the score because that first game kind of shook me a little bit. I didn't think that Dallas was going to run away like that. But if I had to pick a score, I would say 4-2 Tampa tonight with an empty netter at the end of the third. And my prediction is Tampa in 7 games. My hope is that Tampa wins Game 7 in double overtime with a foot in the crease because no goal 1999. Dallas has never won a Stanley Cup in my book, so good luck to them in their quest for their first cup. They haven't been to the final since 2000, and the Lightning were last in the final, I believe 2015. But, I mean, it'd be really nice to see Dallas win their first Stanley Cup.
Who was the Stanley Cup? Who did Tampa play in the 2015 final?
I couldn't tell you because I can't even really remember the 2015 playoffs. That's why I was shocked when they said that Tampa was in the final that year because
I do remember.
I know they won it in 2004 with LeCavalier and Martin St. Louis and Dave Andreychuk, Sabres legend. But to my knowledge, they haven't really. I don't remember them being there in 2015. Maybe it was in Eastern
Chicago.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was during Chicago's dynasty years. So that's probably why, because Chicago probably walked all over them.
I was gonna say, because I feel like every year Tampa is just so good with Stamkos and Kucherov.
Well, Kucherov has 26 goals in the playoffs so far.
Oh, 26 points.
Or 26 points, I'm sorry, but still, that's incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
If he doesn't win Conn Smythe, I think he's definitely, him or Braden Point will win the Conn Smythe, the playoff MVP for Tampa. And if Dallas wins it, I think you could see Anton Khudobin winning it, the Dallas Stars goalie, or somebody like Tyler Seguin or Jamie Benn or one of their other standout offensive or defensive talents. But I mean Anton Khudobin stood on his head this entire playoffs. He's stolen games for Dallas, and you just don't see that with Vasilevsky in Tampa. So it's going to be a little interesting to see if the goalies come into play here as we get down the stretch, because Vasilevsky's always been really shaky as it comes into playoffs. This is his first Stanley Cup Final. Every year we see, like you said, Kev, we see Tampa have these really good teams, and then they go, you see first or second round exits. And
that's what I was going to say, yeah. It's like every year they have 100-plus points, and Kucherov has 100-plus points too.
Kucherov had more points than his team did last year.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, it's just crazy, and then it seems like they always lay an egg in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, and most of the time it's because of Vasilevsky. So, well, I shouldn't say it's because of Vasilevsky, but a lot of the times when teams fall apart, it gets put onto the goaltenders, and there's times where yes, that's true, and there's times where that's not true, because as a goalie myself, you can't blame it on the one guy who's the last line of defense. So, I mean, it's tough to say, but there has been notable blunders from Vasilevsky in the playoffs or in just the regular season. So if he can, keep his wits about him and win 4 more games, I think Tampa will take this easily because they have that offensive firepower. Dallas plays a very conservative game, defensive game most of the time. But speaking of defensemen, Zach Bogosian can win the Stanley Cup. Former Sabre Zach Bogosian traded. I don't even think he was traded.
He's bought out.
He was bought out by the Sabres right before the trade deadline, and he ended up getting signed in Tampa. Everyone was scratching their heads, and now it's looking like it's paying off for him. I mean, he's doing pretty good with Hedman, and if he wins it, good for him. I like Bogo, but I just never liked how he played here.
Yeah. Well, will Zach Bogosian, Steven Stamkos, and Kucherov finally win a cup, or will Dallas continue with this rapid pace here and send Tampa home once again? We will find out. So thanks for coming on, Josh. And Meyer will be on to talk about the NBA playoffs here in a few minutes. I was like, Meyer.
Are we good?
The ultimate party foul.
You've messed up your son's haircut. Do you try to fix it? Work with what you've got? Or show solidarity?
Thank you, babe. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Remember that to love America is to love all Americans, because love has no labels.
Había un niño que era muy sensible a luces y sonidos. Construía escondites donde no podían entrar. No le gustaba mirar a la gente a los ojos, lo hacía sentir incómodo. Un día se descubrió que tenía autismo. Con ayuda, poco a poco, aprendió a vivir mejor con ello.
Mientras más pronto se diagnostique, mejor. Conoce las señales en autismspeaks.org.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
Good job.
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can stop to make sure someone is okay.
We can warn someone when their drink isn't safe.
And disrupt the situation.
We can.
Get someone the cab.
Or walk them home safely.
We can make campuses safer for our friends.
Our roommates.
Our classmates, our fellow human beings.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can. Intervene.
It's on us.
All of us.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Happy to have Meyer Mikulski on with us once again. Meyer, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
All right, so the NBA playoffs, like the NHL playoffs, they are, I mean, obviously in full swing. The NBA is not in the finals yet. We are in the Eastern and Western Conference finals, but everything's heating up here, Meyer. The Celtics had a huge win the other day over the Heat, so that series is 2-1. And then Anthony Davis had a beautiful game-winning shot last night to put the Lakers up 2-0.
Well, as for the Celtics, they needed that win, because had they lost that game and had they blown that, well, they did blow a lead towards the end, but had they actually lost the lead towards the end, that would have been a huge loss, and they would have been in a hole, down 0-3.
As we have some highlights here. Oh, this one will be the Lakers and the Nuggets here. So this is from game 1, as the Lakers took this one here, LeBron with a nice layup. So we were talking right before we came on, you want the Lakers to win, right?
Yeah. I want to see them win one for Kobe.
That would be something. So, yeah, these are the highlights for game 1. But for game 2 last night, Anthony Davis, I mean, what can you say about that shot?
Yeah, they needed that shot, or else Denver would have looked more threatening in this series.
Well, it still would have been 1-1, but yeah, Denver has looked real nice here. I think they're surprising a lot of people.
Yeah, but on that last play, there was a miscommunication between Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumlee. Because Mason Plumlee thought he called for a switch, and instead he called for a switch, right? Even though nobody was screening on him. So, but I guess his thought process was that since Grant is a better perimeter defender, it would be more favorable for him to guard Davis on that play. But there wasn't enough time to think about that.
Well, I mean, Jokic was right up in AD's face. I mean, he was literally 2 inches away from blocking it. So, I mean, it was great defense. It's just better offense.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like I said, what can you say about that shot? And right before that, Reggie Miller said that Jokic made him look like a JV player the way he backed him down.
Yeah,
because Jokic had that shot to put him up, and he was like, oh, he's making Jokic look like a junior varsity player. And then he comes back and just drills that shot. And it's like...
And he said Kobe right after the shot.
Did he?
Yeah.
Wow. So, yeah, the Lakers are up 2-0 now. And, I mean, we've seen Denver come back from 2 3-1 deficits. So, if it does go to 3-1, do not count the Nuggets out. They are used to coming back.
Yeah, they're called the comeback kids for a reason.
So, going back to the Eastern Conference here, like we were saying, that was a huge win for Boston because, yeah, teams come back from 3-1 leads, but you almost never come back from a 3-0 lead or a 3-0 deficit.
It hasn't happened.
So, you want to tell us about Game 3?
Well, I believed that the Heat, they just couldn't get going from 3. They shot only 27% from 3. They limited Jay Crowder and Duncan Robinson, who were key factors in their first 2 wins. So that's something to watch. But on the bright side, Bam had 27-16, but they only held him to 1 assist. Tyler Hero stepped up big with 22 points with 4 assists, but they also held Dragic and Butler in check. Butler, he wasn't being aggressive enough throughout the game until it went to the 4th quarter and it was too late. And Dragic, he only scored 11 points on 2 of 10 field goals, and he had 5 turnovers. And if the Heat want to continue to win in this series, they need to avoid turnovers.
Yeah, what do you think about Jimmy Butler? I mean, because he's been you know, he was with D Rose, and when Chicago was really good, he was obviously a main piece of their success, but he's never had really his own team. You know, he went from Chicago to Philadelphia. Now he's down in Miami. He's pretty much on, well, I mean, I don't want to say on his own. He has a big supporting cast around him, but he's the guy there. And, you know, he's never been the guy. Chicago had D Rose, Philly had Embiid, Simmons, Tobias Harris, but now, like I said, he's the guy there. So what do you think about Jimmy Butler leading the Heat here to potentially a matchup with the Lakers?
Unless you're a Heat fan, then I can't really be surprised that they made it this far because they have a lot of guys that are quote-unquote dogs on their team.
Yeah. And then as for the Celtics here, I mean, they're definitely a force to be reckoned with too. I mean, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart. I mean, and Gordon Hayward's back from injury too. So they're a very deep team too.
Yeah, they are. But my question about the Celtics for the rest of the series is, can isolation basketball work for them for the rest of the series? Because it wasn't working for them in the first two games because that's what caused them to blow the lead in the first two games. But fortunately for them, it worked out in Game 3.
So game 4 is tomorrow, right?
Yes.
So who do you like in that one?
I like Miami.
Or wait a sec. Is it tonight, actually?
No, there's no games tonight.
Are they both tomorrow?
No, Lakers play on Thursday.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize that. So, yeah, but either way, who do you like then in both games?
Heat and Lakers.
Heat and Lakers. So do you think that's going to end up being the final?
I do.
Miami and the Lakers. That would be something. I can't remember exactly how it went, but I saw this tweet where it was basically Kobe and LeBron have had the same path. Or LeBron's had the same path as Kobe did in 09, where they beat the Trailblazers in the first round, then the Rockets. Or no,
the Blazers weren't in their paths, but it was Rockets, then they had to play Denver, and they could win the title in Orlando.
That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. So there are 3, not 4 steps. But yeah, that's crazy to think. It seems like it's just like written that it has to be the Lakers season this year, right?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like right now.
I mean, that's what started all this craziness in 2020 when Kobe died.
Yeah.
So I remember we were sitting here talking about that, and we were just in shock.
Still shocked months later.
Yeah. And, I mean, obviously, as the rest of the year unfolded, a lot more craziness happened. But if the Lakers win, that would be something.
And it'll make LeBron's legacy stronger as well.
Yeah. So I want to go back and talk about what happened in the rest of the playoffs here, just to get our viewers caught up with everything. So starting out in the West, we had a play-in game for the playoffs between Portland and Memphis, and Portland took that one. Now Portland, I believe we were saying this when we were on air back in February, how, you know, Lillard and McCollum always find a way to turn up at the end of the year. And sure enough, they did.
Yeah.
You know, Bubble Lillard, as they call him. Logo Lillard, Bubble Lillard.
He was ridiculous.
Yeah, he was crazy. 50 points here, 50 points there. So they beat John Morant and the Grizzlies to go on to play the Lakers. And the Lakers obviously defeated them 4-1. But, I mean, the Trailblazers, they're going to be good for the next few years, I think.
It's crazy to see how many analysts picked against the Lakers in that series, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of it is you got to give Lillard respect. I mean, he was crazy.
It was a recency bias. That's what it was.
Yeah. So the Rockets beat the Thunder 4-3, and then the Lakers went on to beat the Rockets 4-1, and then on the other side of the bracket here, Denver beat Utah 4-3, and then the Clippers beat the Mavericks 4-2, and then the Nuggets beat the Clippers 4-3. So that's where we got the Lakers and the Nuggets from. And then in the East, Milwaukee beat Orlando 4-1, and the Heat swept the Pacers 4-0. And then Miami beat Milwaukee, who, you know, a lot of people were picking Milwaukee to win, but the Heat, they've been.
They had the formula to stop Giannis.
Yeah. They've been playing great. They defeated Giannis and the Bucks 4-1, and the Celtics swept the 76ers 4-0, as did the Raptors over the Nets. And then that was another great series too, Celtics-Raptors. That went all the way to Game 7, where the Celtics came out victorious. So, yeah, like we said, Lakers-Nuggets and Heat-Celtics. And, it would be cool if it's Lakers-Celtics again. I mean, it seems like, we're saying how it seems like it has to be LeBron in the finals this year.
Yeah.
If LeBron's in the finals, I feel like Boston has to be there too, because that would just be like a perfect
It'll make the rivalry
tribute for
stronger.
Kobe. Boston, LA, So, I'm gonna double check, because I want to make sure we're getting this right here with the games. NBA playoff schedule. So when were you saying that
So the Heat play the Celtics tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, that's tomorrow, and then the Lakers-Nuggets Thursday.
Yeah.
So, dang, I thought we were gonna have a game to watch tomorrow night, but we have to wait until Wednesday. So, thanks for coming on, Meyer, and Dee will be on to talk about the MLB in just a few minutes, so stay tuned for that.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul.
You've messed up your son's haircut. Do you try to fix it? Work with what you've got? Or show solidarity?
Thank you, babe. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Remember that to love America is to love all Americans, because love has no labels.
Había un niño que era muy sensible a luces y sonidos. Construía escondites donde no podían entrar. No le gustaba mirar a la gente a los ojos, lo hacía sentir incómodo. Un día se descubrió que tenía autismo. Con ayuda poco a poco aprendió a vivir mejor con ello.
Mientras más pronto se diagnostique, mejor. Conoce las señales en autismspeaks.org.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
Good job.
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can stop to make sure someone is okay.
We can warn someone when their drink isn't safe.
And disrupt the situation.
We can.
Get someone the cab.
Or walk them home safely.
We can make campuses safer for our friends.
Our roommates.
Our classmates, our fellow human beings.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can.
Intervene.
It's on us.
All of us.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Happy to have Dee Thomas on for the first time with us. She's usually behind the camera. She joined the show last year, junior on the softball team. So Dee, how's it going?
It's going good. COVID has really, changed things. I was on Sports Hour for one day last semester, and COVID said, Dee's not going to do it this semester. Next semester she can. So I'm excited to do baseball. I mean, I talk about baseball all the time, so love to be on.
All right, and you're a Yankees fan, so
I am a
great news.
hardcore Yankees fan, so.
Also a Cowboys fan.
And a Cowboys fan, so I am very
football's
happy
not
that
this
we won.
segment, so
No.
we'll talk about that later. But
So-
well, first of all, real quick, since we're both Yankees fans, a great start, and then
Definitely.
a terrible middle, and then 10 games in a row.
Yeah.
And now we're back. We clinched a playoff spot.
Yeah, I was very disappointed that we lost yesterday, but yesterday was the only day I was going to be a Padres fan because they beat the Mariners, and the Mariners just had to lose for us to clinch, and they lost. So it's a great day. It's a great day.
Yeah, now I will say the Yankees did endure a lot of injuries. I mean, their two star players, Judge, Stanton, Gio Urshela, a lot of pitchers have gone down, but those guys are back now, and we're really kicking here. 31-22, 3.5 back at Tampa, and with the new playoff format this year, the second place team makes it. So
Yeah. And I was very impressed with Stanton's performance since he came back from his injury. He was out for so long, and he came back, and he was just hitting the ball, acting like he never left, like he was never injured. It was so impressive. Judge had, a couple strikeouts to start his, return from the injured list, but Judge is, surprising sometimes. He definitely is either hot or he's not, and he was not when he came back, but I mean, we won 10 in a row, and I mean, we're not winning now. We're currently losing 9-1, but it is what it is. I mean, if we finish in second, I mean, we clinch the playoffs. We're going no matter what.
yeah, so do you want to tell our viewers about that this year? Because we have 16 teams making the playoffs this year. So
Yeah.
definitely an expanded version of the playoffs because, as you know, it was just a 60-game season with the expanded playoffs. So now we have a record 16 teams making the playoffs.
So we have this bracket.
Yeah.
If the season ended today. So if the season ended today, it would be an interesting matchup. So we got, Blue Jays are ranked last right now in the series.
The Buffalo Blue Jays.
The Buffalo Blue Jays.
Buffalo's
They're
an
not
MLB
the Toronto Blue Jays. They're definitely Buffalo Blue Jays. They're facing the Rays, #1. So, I mean, Toronto has been hit or miss. I mean, I could not tell you who's going to win that matchup. I mean, yeah, the Rays are in first, but the Blue Jays could pull it off. I mean, we saw what they did to the Yankees a few weeks ago. They absolutely dominated that series, and then they absolutely lost to the Yankees. They lost the series, and they lost 20-6 one game. Like, we had so many home runs in that game, it was insane. But I find it interesting that, the only team out of the American League East not making the playoffs, if we were to end today, is the Orioles. We got 4 out of the 5 teams right now in the matchups. And if you look at the National League, I mean, currently there's only 2 teams that have clinched the playoffs in National League. It's the Dodgers and the Padres.
Padres' first time since 2006, by the way. So
yeah.
Fernando Tatis Jr., he has put that team on his back. I mean, he has a nice supporting cast around him, but he's been the difference maker out in San Diego.
100%. Another interesting fact that the Chicago White Sox, they were the first team in the American League to clinch, and it's their first time since 2008 and their third time since 2001. So in 19 years, they've only clinched the playoffs 3 times. And it's insane that they made it this year. I mean, there's 8 teams in each league that's making it. So, and the National League's right on the cusp. There's so many teams that are just hanging around 500. They need more wins. Both teams, every team needs it. So, I mean, it'll be definitely interesting to see what happens.
I
can imagine.
So basically, the way that the MLB set up the playoffs this year is pretty much like the NBA and the NHL, that the 1 seed plays the 8 seed, 2 against 7, 3 against 6, and then 4 against 5.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see with the bracket here, Tampa Bay is the 1 seed in the AL right now. Toronto's the 8, and then Over in the NL, the Dodgers are the first seed. They're having another great year. And then the Reds are the 8th seed now. So that's how it's constructed this year. So it's kind of cool. Do you like that setup? Because usually...
I do, because, like, I personally like to watch more baseball. Like, I want more games happening in the playoffs. I hate that, like, normally there's only, like, 4 teams that are happening, or that are playing in the whole, you know, I like more baseball. I watch baseball all the time. So 16 teams, that's a lot. Like 3 games in the wild card, best of 3, and that starts next Tuesday. And then after that is the division series, and it'll be definitely challenging to see like who pulls it out, because I cannot tell you who's gonna win each game. It's totally like up in the air, because all these teams have been unpredictable. It's crazy, this baseball year. I mean, it doesn't even seem like the season has happened. Like, it's the last week of regular season baseball. Like,
it went by really fast.
Like, playoffs start next week. Like, and they, unlike NFL, where they didn't have a preseason, we kind of had a preseason. I remember the Yankees were still, practicing down in Florida during the whole, pandemic happening at first, and they're like, we're gonna keep practicing until we can't. So, playoffs are 8 teams a league, and then 3 division winners, 3 second place teams, and 2 wild card teams. That's how the playoffs are happening. And they're happening in San Diego and Los Angeles right now for the American League, and then the National League's happening in Arlington and Houston. So all of the National League division series are taking place in Texas, and the World Series will take place in Arlington as well.
Yep, and then for the league leaders, got a couple Yankees up there. DJ LeMahieu, another stellar season. He was another one I forgot to mention. He was banged up a little bit during the year. Mm-hmm. He's hitting .361.
Yeah, he actually was named Player of the Week this past week. And he has an insane batting average, insane OPS, and, he's just killing the game. I think he had like 13 runs batted in the past week, which is crazy. Luke Voigt is also up there. He's hitting 21 home runs so far, and that's a lot. And like, I did not think he was going to hit that many this year. He's just been a power machine, like cranking it. I mean,
he came out of nowhere. Do you remember that trade?
Yeah, he was just like, oh, here's Luke Voigt, and we picked up Garrett Cole in the trade. He's been pretty good this year. Like, he's not been unstoppable, but he's been pretty decent. He's been throwing the heat. He's been dominating those batters. They haven't been getting on a lot. He hasn't allowed a lot of runs either. He's been hanging in there. He's been hanging in there as a Yankee. We got Jose Abreu, who has, 53 RBIs, and there's still 1 week left of regular baseball. I cannot pronounce this man's name, but one of the Royals has 19 stolen bases, and that's impressive. And
Adalberto Mondesi.
Yeah.
I think.
Sorry if we butchered that, and then Fernando Tatis Jr. from the Padres has 47 runs. That's a lot too. These numbers are just crazy, and it's crazy because there's only 60 games. Like, if there was more games, these numbers would be higher. It'd be interesting to see how these guys would be predicted to win, and how they would be predicted to get to these statistics.
Yeah, like if Luke Voigt has 21 home runs in 50-plus games, what would he do in 162 games,
Yeah, it's...
is he on pace for 60? He's been going crazy lately.
Yeah, I could see him probably hitting 30 by the end of the year at least, depending on how far we go in the playoffs. I could see him hitting at least 30, and I could see, Gio Urshela has been doing well. He's got the only run batted in today for the Yankees. We just got to keep our guys healthy, and if they get hurt, get them back faster, because, Stanton and Judge were out for a whole month plus. So Yankees are very, very bad with their injuries.
Yeah, so just a quick rundown of the standings here. In the AL East, we have Tampa, the Yankees, Toronto, Baltimore, and Boston. I love seeing Boston at the bottom.
Oh, that's right. Boston's also not in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I lied earlier. Orioles and Boston are not in the playoffs.
And the Orioles have played relatively well. A lot of people thought they were going to be at the bottom, but 23-31 isn't terrible.
Yeah. I do have to say, for injuries this year, the big thing for the Astros is they just lost Justin Verlander for Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, that's the one thing I didn't mention. The Astros got off so lucky without having fans in the stands this year because everyone was planning on booing them so much, but they got off the hook. But they'll be booed next year, don't worry. So, all right, that will do it for this week. Thanks for coming on, Dee, and thank you for watching. We will be back next week as hopefully the Bills will be 3-0. So, thank you and have a good evening.